The self-storage world has never been easier than it is right now. It's also never been as complicated as it is right now. Let's talk about that. My name is Mark Helm, and I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, and I'm the creator of the Self-Storage Quick Start Academy, quickstartacademy.com. You can find all types of training for the small investor who wants to get in the self-storage business or grow their self-storage business. I strategically help people create a self-storage business that's fulfilling and creates true wealth. And in the old days, when I would look at a self-storage project or a land to build self-storage on, how I would analyze the market area was I would call the self-storage facilities that are in a 3 to 5 mile radius. I would try to get a feel for how full they were they offering a lot of discounts, and I kind of went on my gut. If I felt unsure about the market, I would maybe even go on to Google Earth, try to figure out how big the facilities were, estimate the square footage in the market area, and then pull up the marketing package and look at the demographics or get my own demographics for the area and try to estimate what the per capita of self-storage is. How many square feet of self-storage per person is there in that market area? Didn't have to do that often, but I did it sometimes. And then I would decide whether we wanted to analyze it, proceed further. I always knew that I had a feasibility report that was going to come in and validate my assumptions. That's how I used to do it. Well, all that has to happen is you spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in due diligence costs in a year's time on projects that don't close, and that will cure you pretty quick of that particular habit of how you determine if the market area is healthy. Look, with all of the product coming online, it's never been more critical to know the supply-demand, the economic health of a market area for a project you're looking in. So in my commercial real estate world, when we're working with retailers, helping them find a location, I have all kinds of reports and methodologies at our disposal to help these guys figure out where they want to be. I can look at a particular location, I can pull up a spending report of how much discretionary spending there is in that location, in that submarket. I can pull up gap analysis reports and find out what type of retailer is missing from that market area and that location. And these guys go in with a lot of knowledge at their disposal. In the self-storage world, our primary metric still is square feet per capita. Self-storage doesn't show up on any of the, quote, retail spending reports. I hope to alter that. Someday we'll be able to do a gap analysis report and see how much spending in that market area goes towards self-storage when what it should be. But right now, our metric is square feet of self-storage per capita. And you better know it. I even know it now before I even do my first analysis on it. If it's oversaturated, I just move on to the next deal. Well, our metric is square feet of self-storage per person in your market area. Well, it turns out in the United States that between 6.5, 7.5, 8 square feet per person will mean generally that submarket's in equilibrium. Equilibrium means that the supply is meeting the demand. Now, in some markets, 8 square feet could actually be low. In other words, there's still demand. You go in some real dense areas like, let's say, San Diego. I was just there, nice city. In a very dense part of that city, 8 square feet might indicate there's still demand. You go to smaller, more rural markets, 8 square feet very well could mean oversaturation. The other thing I look for is average income. If you remember a few episodes ago, episode 175, I talked about what are the metrics or the key indicators of whether a project's going to be successful. If you haven't seen that, go watch that. I think it'll be very helpful to you. But I pay particular attention to the spending because I don't have a gap analysis report. I can't see how much spending is actually going on in this submarket for self-storage, and if there's room for more spending. I really just have to look at what is the average income. Well, the average income I'm looking for is somewhere between 40 on the low end or 50. If I'm in, again, a dense area, a city, let's say I'm in California or San Diego, I mean, I'm going to want to see a minimum of 50,000 average income. In other parts of the country, 40,000 is good. What I don't want to do is be in a market where people are struggling to pay rent and groceries, no matter what the per capita square foot is. Now, someday, we will have all the tools that the other retailers have at their disposal as we're analyzing market areas. But today, what we have primarily to determine if I'm going to go to the next step is square feet per capita and income. And that will tell me what I'm going to do. So those are the critical kind of metrics. There's one more metric that I pay a lot of attention to now that I never had access to without the feasibility report, or that I thought much about before, and that's deals in the pipeline. You may be looking at a submarket that is showing demand, but what you may not know is that there are 3 projects on the planning and one's under construction. They just haven't opened yet. Those could have a real impact on whether that's a submarket you want to go into. Well, how do I find all of this out? Well, there's reports you can buy, and I used to buy them. If I was very excited about a project but still unsure, you could go to the ISS store and buy reports on markets, or especially if you're in the bigger cities, parts, Houston, and get a feel for how that market is doing. And there's subscription services you can go to, Reese, Yardi Metrics. Now, those tend to be very expensive, but if you're going to be in the self-storage business, particularly if you're going to be in multiple markets, I really think you need a tool like that. We use that tool. I can go in, I can pull up not every location, but most locations in the country. And if I'm looking at a site, I'll pull up the closest self-storage facility, and I will look at what's going on in that submarket. What's the population? What's the income? What's the per square foot? I can also see the rent rates. I can see the specials that are being offered, and I can look at and see what's in the pipeline or under construction in that submarket. Now, we pay a lot for that, but that's the business we're in, and that is a cost that you've got to have if you're going to be doing multiple projects in today's world. Now, what I do for our coaching customers and people who are part of the Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage community, if I have access to it, I will sell you a preliminary report for $350, and that just helps pay for the subscription. But you don't need to buy. I mean, you can buy it. It makes life easy, but I'm not doing this to sell it to you. What I'm telling you is you better figure out early on what is the supply demand of that market and what's in the pipeline before you order the feasibility report. Have an idea. You can do it yourself. You can buy market reports on the area and then extrapolate how that would affect that submarket, or you can buy subscription services or buy one-off reports from me or anyone else who may be doing what I'm doing. I don't know of anyone, but there probably are others. Whatever you do, if you're going to be adding more space, get a feasibility report. Now, these preliminary reports don't replace the feasibility report. They just tell us if this is a submarket worth pursuing. And then get the feasibility report to validate what you got in your preliminary market report. Whichever method you use, do it. Don't just build or don't just buy and hope it's going to be a good project. That's not a very strategic business strategy for getting in the self-storage business. Hope this helps as you're looking at projects out there. Thank you very much. My name's Mark Helm. I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, and I'm the creator of the Storage World Analyzer. Once we do the preliminary market report and study and determine this is something we want to look at further, the very next thing I do is I do an analysis on the project, either to be built or an expansion or even an existing facility. And we use the Storage World Analyzer to do that financial analysis. If you're not using it, I invite you to look at it. It's a great tool. CreatingWealthThroughSelfStorage.com, and go to the Storage World Analyzer tab, or go straight to StorageWorldAnalyzer.com. I look forward to being with you next week as we explore what are the skills that are really needed today to be in the self-storage business. See you then.